Well, hello, and thanks for watching another episode of ARFCOM News, your twice-weekly dose of the finest two-way propaganda. Back during the mostly peaceful riots of 2020, Uber driver Daniel Perry turned a corner in his car and found himself surrounded by angry protesters who began beating on his car. One man approached his vehicle and pointed an AK at Perry, so Perry shot him. A jury convicted Perry of murder, and he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Texas Governor Greg Abbott then pardoned Perry, but now the Travis County DA is trying to undo the pardon. In Texas, a governor cannot just pardon anybody he wants to. He can only pardon someone after the Board of Pardons and Paroles has recommended that person, which is exactly what happened. The Board of Pardons and Paroles unanimously voted to recommend Perry for pardon. Nevertheless, District Attorney Jose Garza claims the proper procedure wasn't followed. They don't actually specify what legal hoops weren't jumped through, so I guess we'll have to wait until we see the court filing, but they're appealing the pardon. If you think you hate government bureaucrats enough, you're wrong. But hey, it would be impossible for us to produce quality two-way propaganda without sponsors, so let's pay some bills. Today's video is sponsored by Franklin Armory. It is a scientific fact that bad guys with twice as many holes are half as dangerous. That's math. It can't be wrong. Want reduced split times and tighter groups? With a Franklin Armory binary firing system, you can improve these important shooting metrics and more. Visit franklinarmory.com and gain the selectable option to fire on both the pull and release trigger functions of your semi-automatic firearm today. And by TNVC.com. The new Mars LC 2000 meter laser rangefinder is in stock and ready to ship. It's compact and packed with features including a built-in ballistic computer, Bluetooth, and a red aiming laser, as well as an IR ranging laser, which cannot be detected by most night vision devices. And by Hydra. The Mark 15 Hydra is the most versatile black rifle platform the industry has ever seen. The most you will ever need to convert calibers is a barrel, a bolt, and a magazine well. As you good folks are no doubt aware, wacky tobacco remains unlawful at the federal level. Even though they recently rescheduled it, they still consider it unlawful for someone to have a gun and a left-handed cigarette at the same time if they don't have a prescription. And it remains illegal altogether in Nebraska. So, when Ronald Curdy got arrested for a small quantity of the devil's lettuce, it is no surprise that his handgun was also confiscated. But although it's illegal to have weed in Nebraska, the state has no law regarding the possession of guns and weed at the same time like the federal government does. But possession of weed is a minor offense, and Curdy only had to pay a $300 fine. So he should have been able to just run down and pick up his gun as soon as he was done, especially considering a judge had ordered it to be released. But this Karen with the soulless dead eyes is City Attorney Molly Miller, and she filed an appeal to keep Curdy from getting his gun back, arguing it would violate federal law for the city to transfer the gun to someone who is an unlawful user of a controlled substance. The judge agreed that she was technically correct because federal law literally says that, and so far as the feds are concerned, a person is still an unlawful user for a whole year after they got caught. Why?
Imagination.
I mean, I think it's more reasonable to think this dude learned his lesson than to simply assume he'll go back to his criminal ways, but the judge amended his order so Curdy would not be allowed to pick up his gun until a year later. But Curdy didn't know that, so when he tried to pick it up, the clerk told him there was some new federal law and he wouldn't be able to get his gun back until May 3rd of 2024. Hey, wait, that's last month. Did he get his gun back? Well, yeah. Finally, on May 28th, they had to give it back to him.
I request the highest of fives.
But only after dragging their feet for almost a month. Curdy called the property room multiple times and emailed the city attorney and the police chief, but they refused to answer his emails. On May 21st, almost 3 weeks after the date on the court order, the chief of police, Jeff Elliott, approved the property room to release Curdy's gun, a Ruger LCP in .380. 6 years ago, Bank of America decided to stop loaning money to companies that make sport utility rifles. Now, they are reversing that policy because, guess what? Deciding not to earn revenue from an entire industry segment is even less profitable than it sounds. Because it turns out, Some politicians are actually interested in defending our gun rights, especially if it also means defending businesses in their districts. And politicrators in Texas and Florida started passing bills that punish companies which engage in this sort of discrimination. Now, before we dive into this next segment, I just want you to know the topic concerns male private parts. I will approach the subject with every ounce of professionalism at my disposal. So you know how about 3 seconds into a conversation about gun rights, the control freak always makes sure to remind you he or she is thinking about your penis. No matter how many times it happens, it always seems to catch me a little bit off guard because, honestly, I don't think normal people walk around obsessing about that sort of thing and just bouncing around in their heads. I don't know if it's just an awkward way of asking for pics or what, but it's creepy and it makes me uncomfortable. No, I mean, I know I'm obviously not compensating. Am I right, guys? But you know, it's not like anybody is going to empirically prove a correlation between
Dick,
Yeah.
take a look out of starboard.
size and gun ownership. Yeah, somebody actually did exactly that. No, they didn't technically measure.
Whip it out, Butters.
But the claim is that gun owners are compensating because they feel inferior. So simply asking whether the respondents are satisfied with their
Willie. Yeah. What's that?
is relevant. But as an additional matter of satisfaction, they were also asked whether they had ever tried any form of enlargement treatment. And come to think of it, that's probably a more accurate assessment of whether they're satisfied with the size of their
Pecker!
Oh, yeah.
So what were the results? Well, it turns out men who own guns are less likely to be dissatisfied with their penis size, and the effect is even more pronounced for owners of military-style rifles. In fact, they say that men who are more dissatisfied with their
Woody Harrelson?
are less likely to own guns. You hear this? It's classic projection. Dudes who don't own guns are more likely to be insecure about their
Wang! Pay attention.
and that perfectly explains why they are so obsessed with your
Wiener? Are you saying there's something wrong with my gear?
It all makes sense now. It seems fair to speculate the reason is likely linked to testosterone and lower fear levels for things like guns and fast cars and loud noises. What do you guys think? Why is it that control freaks have smaller penises than gun owners? And now for your moment of zen. Do you like pews and other pew-related things? Would you like to help us keep delivering you
American Pew propaganda at the low price of $3.99?
We literally couldn't pay our bills without our sponsors, so do us a solid and get yourself something nice from them. You deserve it. I love you.